Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, guys, welcome to another edition of This Week in Crypto here on March 7th, 2025. Up and down week, which has actually been more up than down. It may not quite feel like that, especially with the early week performances that we saw, but slowly but surely we began to creep up. Obviously, we see Grok here up 456%, which is just dwarfing everything else on our 7-day price performance chart here. But if we go over to the far left, we do see that Bitcoin is actually up 10% in the past week. If we go back, excuse me, if we go back to our show from last Friday, we were sitting here teasing the 80K mark, potentially going back below it when fear was kind of at its maximum, got down to about 78K just before this exact last week point. But if we go down the line here, we do see Ethereum up about 2%, XRP, a big winner, up 22%. It's funny, we have a few meme coins showing up here because of false market cap reportings. Binance Coin up 4.6%, Solana up 5.05%. So, and of course, Cardano, I can't ignore the fact that they are up a huge 43% over the past week. So they made a nice rebound as well. So lots of good stories out there. Again, it's hard to see because of Grok's just dominant performance here, but you understand that overall market caps have looked pretty good. Social volume up 13% for Bitcoin. XRP seeing nearly double the amount of conversations. Cardano seeing over 4 times the amount of conversations that it was seeing the previous week compared to the previous week. So lots and lots to discuss. What we're going to do here is go through some of the biggest indicators to kind of get a gauge on where things are looking and how the upcoming price performances are likely to play out based on what we've seen historically from these kinds of indicators. So I'm looking at the past 6 months. That's probably a little too much. We'll just do the last 1 month instead. Make it nice and close up. And I'll also change these bars to 8 hours. Okay, so what we're looking at here are the mentions of 50K to 69K Bitcoin in blue versus the mentions of 100K to 119K here in red. And as you would guess, neither of these price ranges have been crossed over the past month. We've kind of stayed in that 78K to about 96K, 98K, yeah, at most. So this is intentional. What we're doing is looking at projections from the crowd, basically predictions on where prices are going to go once it gets out of this range. And as you would imagine, knowing the fact that we are very confident that prices move the opposite direction of the crowd's expectations, you can see that when things tend to get very, very fearful and people are predicting low prices, that's where we bottom out. When things are getting very, very euphoric or greedy or optimistic, that's when you see a lot of tops coming. So it's all about when the blues are outpacing the red or red is outpacing the blue here. The most prominent time was in late February, just 1 week ago, right around the time we were streaming last week. We saw that the 50K to 69K predictions were exploding. And sure enough, we bounced right off of that 78K level and begin to surge. Then these may not look like the highest bars, but look at the reds compared to the blues. That's kind of what we're checking out here, the ratio of high prices versus low prices. And once we saw those really popping up, the price suddenly drops. Then we see blue outpacing the red, almost at the same level as the red, and we bounce. And here we are now. The latest that we've seen is pretty low predictions, kind of like what we were seeing in mid-February. Neither one is sticking out too much. In terms of short-term indicators, this has quickly become one of my favorites to check in on multiple times a day. I really recommend it. I'm going to actually drop the link because I know there were some people that were asking for it. Here with you, Balresh, feel free to drop it in our YouTube chat And anyone watching either on replay or live can plug that straight in. And assuming they have a 2-week trial or they're a Sandbase Pro member, you'll be able to see everything here in real time. You can even, of course, see the predictions broken down by platform, which is really helpful. All right, moving on to another important metric, which is the positive versus sentiment scores for Bitcoin right now. And what we're seeing is a very high level, semi-high level, I should say, not very, but the optimism has somewhat returned on this mid-sized bounce that we've seen over the past week. Bitcoin's level of positive comments versus negative is about 1.5 to 1. That's a little above average. I've usually seen it rest between 1.2 to 1.3. So just drawing a loose line to give some context, somewhere around there is about the average. So anytime we get above, that's a sign that we're getting a little euphoric. You saw it briefly here on March 1st after this big bounce following Trump's announcement over the, well, I'm blanking. I'll get to it in a moment. But the fund that the U.S. opened, that caused a lot of euphoria, and then we topped out. Then we went quite negative, and we bottomed out. And now we're back at this level. You can see that we have already reversed course a little bit after being at 92K about a day and a half ago. And now we're still hovering. And I would like to see that the positivity comes down a little bit. As long as traders are feeling this optimistic, the upside of a continued rebound up to 100K and beyond is a little more limited. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but it means it would be slightly against the odds, if you want to look at it that way. And just so we can go down a few of the other top caps, I do want to mention that Ethereum saw its highest level of optimism, at least in the past month. I think it was close to the highest in the past 3 months. The last time we saw something this high looks like January 22nd, just a couple days after Trump was officially inaugurated. So it's interesting to see that Ethereum is starting to rise once again. It was really starting to bottom out. I even put a post out at the beginning of the week showing the climb that we saw up until late December, and then the gradual decline that kind of happened over the past 3 months. But it's starting to pop up a little bit, which is interesting because Ethereum really hasn't done much. It's had a few very brief moments where it's outpaced Bitcoin, but for the most part, it's still one of the biggest underperformers in really the last couple of years, if you want to go back that far. Solana, actually, we'll do XRP first, go in order of market cap. XRP is very, very optimistic and bullish according to the crowd right now. Huge spike on March 2nd after we saw this surge following Trump's announcement. That the 2.11 that you see over on the top left of my screen, that's showing that there were more than 3 times, I'm sorry, 1.0, more than twice the amount of positive comments compared to negative comments. That's quite high for any asset. And it's still high right now. I mean, we saw this spike just about on the last 8-hour bar, and it's a little bit above average right now. So that's not ideal. We want to see a little more doubt toward the number 3 market cap in order to justify further rises. And then meanwhile, look at Solana. I mean, it had its heyday. Whoops, I don't want to drag there. Go back. It had its heyday mostly at the beginning of the year. A lot of positivity. We actually saw this huge run up where it got, if I'm not mistaken, very close to $300. And then immediately we went super negative, which is interesting. I think part of this was due to the sudden drop, along with the fact that the network was going through some issues at that time. And it's been a lot more negative ever since. People are quite down on Solana, which in turn makes it a better candidate for a bounce or a rebound. If Bitcoin begins to get its own bearings and climb, Solana could be one of the better altcoin picks just based on sentiment alone, of course. All right, so that's the top 4 non-stable coins out there. What we're going to do now is take a look at how whales are performing. And it's been a little better. We reported a week ago that we were actually seeing some concerning drops in terms of the holdings of wallets with 10 or more Bitcoin in them. And there's a definite correlation between how they behave and how prices behave. So we can take off miners. I don't think it's too much of a story right now. We will keep on stable coins. I'll get rid of this niche line there. So we're just looking now at Tether, USD coin, and Bitcoin in terms of what the key stakeholders are doing. Specifically for Tether, the 100K to 10 million USDT line is starting to climb again. Not a serious decline, incline compared to the massive decline that we saw between October and mid-February. But at least since February 15th or so, we've seen um, we've seen about 0.6% of Tether's supply move back into these key stakeholder wallets. With USD coin, same thing. It's starting to rebound a little bit, up 0.8% or so in terms of the overall supply going back into these key tiers that generally need to have, if you will, dry powder in order to justify further rises and uh, purchase more and more crypto. And then, of course, I mentioned Bitcoin is on the rise. It's not a massive rebound, but we can at least say that the bleeding that happened between February 19th and March 3rd appears to have halted because these key stakeholders are now moving back up. They've added a little over 3,000 Bitcoin over the last 3 days, indicating that there's some increased confidence now that prices have dropped so much. They saw those mid 80K levels and decided it's time to begin to scoop coins up after they were dumping when Bitcoin was teasing 100K about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So that's a very good sign. We need to see the key stakeholders accumulating. What we don't want to see is the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges growing like it has been for about a month now. If we go back 1 month or so, the amount of BTC on exchanges was sitting at about 7.57% of all BTC. Now it's at 7.68, so about a 0.11% increase of Bitcoin on exchanges compared to a month ago. Not a serious increase. You can see the context of just how much higher we were back in September. But regardless, be a little concerned about that. The supply held by top exchange addresses, this is just looking at the 10 largest exchange wallets holding Tether. It's actually declined a little bit. Not a serious decline, but it's actually quite interesting to see how this red line has correlated so closely with the price. Even right here, when we bottomed out February 27th, all of a sudden we see an increase in Tether temporarily, and then it starts to drop again. I've noticed an interesting trend with the supply held by the top 10 Tether wallets and where prices go. So if I actually just hide the other two, make it simple to see, look at how correlated this is when you really take a look at it day by day. Even this jump here and this jump here. I mean, lots and lots of days where it really followed what these 10 wallets are doing. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's like the missing piece of alpha you need in your trading, but I would keep tabs on this because it has shown quite a bit of swing trade potential future ideas for your decision making, going back to the day that Trump was elected, and we saw this massive jump of about about $2.2 billion worth of Tether now on these top 10 exchange wallets. And suddenly there's this huge rise, and it just kept on going. And then this was your signal a couple days before we topped out that we probably reached a top. Then we start to climb again. This was a signal that you could probably take some profit. And then there's this interesting anomaly here, and then it dropped. You get the idea. But I like this as a potential signal, and I'm going to do a little more research on it over the next few weeks to see what I can find there. USD coin a little more all over the place, but we do see that there's about $4.14 billion worth of USD coin on the top 10 exchange wallets for that respective asset. Also notice this, the social dominance for Bitcoin hit a massive spike yesterday, where it was getting over 31% of all discussions. That's usually a sign of a turnaround, and considering prices were climbing, you know, if I zoom in a little bit to make it clearer, prices were climbing and we see the social dominance spike, and then it kind of dropped out for a little bit. Let me see if I can make this interval a little better. Yeah, so right here, you can see how it correlated with this temporary jump and then a drop, and now it's kind of cruising back up a little bit, and we'll see how things go. A lot of these swings have been related to just how much Bitcoin's being talked about, and then what the overall sentiment is toward Bitcoin, which is, of course, resulting in swings for the rest of crypto. So keep an eye on social dominance as well. And then funding rate is another important factor. I'm going to get rid of everything other than Binance just for simplistic reasons. Go past 3 months. And we do see there's a slight bias toward shorting right now. Good sign. We want to see traders betting against Bitcoin and trying to profit off of its demise. That means that if prices go up, there's liquidations from those shorts that basically just add rocket fuel to Bitcoin's price, and therefore profit redistribution can go into every other asset. Total amount of holders, I'd also mention, is struggling to stay afloat. We saw more non-empty wallets by far on January 20th than we're seeing now. If I go back those 6 weeks since Trump was inaugurated, you see that there's actually 134,210 less non-empty Bitcoin wallets than there were compared to that point. And that is also a good thing because it indicates that retailers, which make up the majority of this line, are jumping ship and saying, I've had enough. You know, Bitcoin has not done what I expected it to do. It hit this fun all-time high right before Trump was inaugurated, and it's just been a mess ever since, where we've seen overall Bitcoin drop 16%, a little over that, since he was inaugurated. And I'm not a fan of losing money, so I'm going to leave. And usually what happens is they shed their coins, sharks and whales scoop them up, and then they jack up the prices when everyone else is least expecting it. So that's a solid sign there. Percent of supply and profit, by the way, one we haven't looked at in a while, it's actually down to about the lowest levels we've seen in 2025, currently sitting at about 81.5% of coins in profit. And that amounts to about 16.16 million BTC. Generally, if it's above 90, right, we're starting to get a little bit toppy. But considering we're well below that threshold now, there's room for prices to kind of recover a bit. And that's what I think most of the people watching this are hoping for. By the way, Balance, are you on the call yet?
Oh, yes, I am.
Welcome, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Good. I can even switch on camera for a short period of time. Sure. Background is also okay. Good. I'm here already for around 10 minutes. Yeah.
No worries. We'll try to get as much info from you as we can during this short time. But what are you seeing in the markets right now?
Surprisingly, there is something interesting for relatively short term, which I wanted to share. As you share the screen, you can also find it. If you go to our social trends tools, yeah, and then you enter actually reserve or strategic. In the search field, both of them, reserve or strategic. Now, there will be interesting things. Oh, yeah. Take maybe 1 month here, last month, and then take it maybe 1 hour instead of 4 hours. Okay, so social dominance, switch it on. This is the key now. You know, there are sometimes stories, let it calculate. you will see, once I saw the number,
Oh yeah.
Look at the narrative dominance. It's 5%. Actually, today it's almost like 8%.
Yeah.
We know from examples, typically Bitcoin is majority of dominance of all talks. Now, for those who maybe not so much familiar with our metrics, how we use it, social dominance is percentage of conversations related to this query percentage compared to all talks in crypto which we monitor. So you can imagine, anything even being above 1 or 2%, so it's quite a lot. Bitcoin is typically, I don't know, 20, 30, Ethereum between 5 and 10. From our experience, in anything breaking 5% dominance is already a significant story. And here, because it's loaded with sentiment, strategic Bitcoin reserve, it is the dominant sentiment story at all. What you see in the screen, first time it's mentioned was very positive. It marked exactly the top. Okay, almost exactly. It tried to pump for a few hours. Correct. Second time, people come into this event, they are coming with expectations that it will be like last time. There is something about strategic reserve and will dump. What market does? It does opposite. It just goes up. It's so beautiful example that when we analyze the present, of course, we don't know the future, but our brain wants to think he knows how our brain is doing it. It takes the recent past. You say, okay, what happened in the past? What happened in the future? Nope. It happens differently. It happens differently. Whenever it's a repeating story. ETFs, halvings, CPI inflation. Whenever there is a pattern established, you try to apply it to the next one. Each halving is different. That's why, or that's why Ethereum ETF was different from Bitcoin ETF. Yeah? So once you apply the past examples, the past data into the current event, project into the future, it doesn't work. Or sometimes it works opposite. It's so beautiful example. When I saw it today, I said, wow, we need to share it.
Yeah.
So the outcomes, if there is a narrative and you come to this tool and you see, wow, it's above 5%, it's extremely significant. It will have 100% market impact. There will be pricing impact. And there will be quite often market turning around if there is extreme sentiment around it. Yeah, so just take it with you. It's very helpful. Yeah.
This is a really, really cool illustration of how crowd sentiment can really impact prices, Maksim. I love the find. I think the strategic reserve, of course, the words I was missing when I was talking about Trump's announcement, he actually said that today would be the day. At the beginning of the week, he said today would be the day where it would likely be announced. I think a lot of people are anticipating it. I have not seen any updates on X yet about the details related to it, but we do see, just as Maksim's showing, this big FOMO spike that happened when he announced it last Sunday, I believe, and then a big FUD spike. It seems to kind of occur in simultaneous timing with this drop here. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was some sort of negative reaction, and then all of a sudden we bounce from
it was negative here. I mean, at least it was saying, okay, calm down. They will not buy Bitcoin with the fresh money. They will just now planning not to sell existing Bitcoins under government control, whatever the size for criminal activities. And maybe there is some formulation, tax-free, tax-neutral strategy, whatever it is. So you can say it's negative towards what people expected. It's not really like FAT, but I saw the FAT too. Yeah, true. Or you read it and you say, okay, people are not bullish in this, and the price goes up.
Exactly. Yeah, and I know that the other announcement. Thank you, by the way, Balresh, for letting us know that there has been something signed, and the details are going to come out later today regarding the strategic reserve. But the other big news tidbit people are waiting for is Trump's announcement of a potential removal of crypto capital gains. which is massive for the U.S. Citizens out there. It looks like there hasn't been a major uptick yet, but this was another thing he said that on Friday he would give updates on. So this was the initial reaction. The largest spike happened right as crypto topped on March 2nd. This was last Sunday. And now we've kind of been seeing it as a bottom signal the last few times. All three of these big waves of spikes about it seem to have correlated with a bottom. So two big pieces of news here in the US that are really dictating price swings. And we talked about it in our biweekly insight, which you should check out, by the way, everyone, about how politics, particularly US geopolitical subjects, are kind of the main driver of markets right now. It's not always like that, but it kind of has been since Trump was inaugurated about 6 weeks ago. And we have to kind of accept that, whether we want other factors to dictate prices. It's all kind of being diminished a little by the big pieces of news coming out from the U.S., from Trump and Musk and Zelensky. You know, we can see the mentions here of when Zelensky visited the Oval Office a little over a week ago. Then we see Trump's announcement, and then we see a bunch of tariff talk as we retraced on Monday. So it's kind of been a three-wave thing going on between these two individuals and the tariff discussion, which is another thing that's causing a lot of havoc. And regardless of your political beliefs and stances, that's not what our channel is about. It's certainly having an impact on price levels throughout crypto right now. While we still have you, Maksim, do you have any other indicators that you are keeping an eye on right now? Or did he just jump off?
No, he's not jump off. I'm here.
No worries.
Other than that, I'm still hoping for one last dump.
Mm-hmm.
Just to finish specifically some pattern. It would make my eye satisfied because the pattern would be perfect. But we can move sideways for quite some time before it happens. Yeah, there's a chance. We have not seen on the Bitcoin level. Yeah, if you check into net realized profit loss, you will see it's rather quiet. No big correction so far. Right?
I'll just overlay it on this chart. Yeah, you're right. Not much at all happening, especially compared to what we were seeing during the end of the bull rally in November and mid-December. It looks like it's kind of just calmed down significantly for now.
Yeah. So,
and if we look, I wanted to mention this too. If we look at the correlation between Bitcoin and stock prices, there is a bit of a lag here, but I have seen that crypto is still kind of following the same path as equities. You know, we get wrapped up in all of the crypto fluctuations and forget sometimes it's still kind of just acting similar to like a high leverage tech stock, which is what the meme has been joking about over the last couple of years as interest rate hikes have gone up and down here in the US. But I'm still waiting for that moment where crypto breaks out while the S&P doesn't, as a good sign that there's a correlation break, because Maksim, you've talked about this. Prices tend to really take off and the bull markets really are most prominent when there's no reliance on the S&P 500, right?
There are two stages. One of them, indeed, when crypto start moving in opposite direction, it's potentially could be a sign of reversal, either from down to up or from top to down. And second stage, when they become very, very tightly correlated, means the trend has become very strong and obvious and straightforward for everyone. Yeah. So at this stage, when correlation is very high, we will have for some time. Actually, now when I'm talking, I'm thinking at the same time, could be a sign that we have a trend. Oh, need to do a little bit backtesting or event studies. Period of time where correlation between Bitcoin price and let's say S&P 500 stays 0.8 and above. Is it the time when exactly a trend becomes sustainable in any direction too? Because now when I'm thinking, especially on the way down, when something goes down, everything goes down. Even in crypto, everything is correlated. This very
That's true.
maybe one out of 200 exception. And this exception usually short-lived. On the way up, probably the same. Yeah, we really need to do data research on it. Now I think it should be the case. 0.8 and above, the trend is clear. And then you just say, okay, where are we moving, up or down? And then probably you can deploy more capital. 2 to 4 weeks should sustain. Idea for backtesting strategy.
Yeah, I know we used to have a numerical way of measuring the correlation, but maybe we can bring that back. That would be interesting for a lot of us.
Yes. So I think it was Ante who did that, if I'm not mistaken. But
I think it was Jan. Yeah, an old employee, Jan.
That's a long time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a long time ago. Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I think the correlation between the two is very fascinating, and I'd love to see more of it. Also wanted to mention, the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire. We have a Polymarket poll for that. We even had yesterday, I don't have a screenshot for it, but SBF was in the news, and he had a big interview with Tucker Carlson, and the crypto community gives a 3% chance of him being pardoned right now, which is fascinating to me. When we're seeing all these political or just fraud related subjects popping up, it clearly means these are hot topics that are impacting the markets. And I do think something like, of course, a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire would have a positive impact in the markets overall. Just like I think if one of the biggest criminals crypto's ever seen, allegedly, I guess there's a few people who argue against that, but if Sam Bankman-Fried gets a pardon, right, that would open the floodgates for other fraudsters to feel confident that they can just go for it. They should try whatever they want to try to steal other people's money, knowing that the consequences may not actually happen, right? So I think that there's a lot of these types of news stories that are circulating right now that are fascinating to see because they show the FOMO and FUD of the community circulating on and off every day. So keep an eye, of course, on this topic. I think, from just a humanity standpoint, many people are hoping that the bloodshed can stop down the road. But, SBF being back in the news, I think in the midst of this crazy volatility was not something most people had on their bingo cards right now. Here's Trump's announcement. This is, by the way, the bi-weekly market update that I put out yesterday. Trump's announcement of the crypto reserve. We see the pattern of crypto finally bottoming out on February 28th. And then we see the FOMO from the crypto reserve, and then the punishment that they received for the FOMO by overreacting, or at least buying en masse without too much information coming out about it yet. It was kind of a buy the rumor, sell the news situation there. This also highlights the tariffs, the crypto reserve announcement, and then punish for the overreaction. Just another look at it. And I also wanted to point out, the 3 different sizes of Bitcoin wallets. There are 6 less 100 plus BTC wallets. These are classified as the whales compared to a month ago. 37,390 more wallets that hold less than 0.1. So these are the fish, the small wallets. And then the sharks and the dolphins, 0.1 to 100 BTC, there's actually 12,754 more. So I like this pink the most. The whales are essentially even. 6 less is about as even as it gets. But considering how many are climbing in this mid tier, that's an encouraging sign. As we mentioned, I still think that we want to see a decline overall in the smallest wallets. So keep an eye on this breakdown as well. We'll give more updates over the next couple of weeks as we see changes in those fluctuations. Let's also take a live look at MVRV. This was from a couple days ago where we saw that the average returns were a bit below 0%. If we check it out now, here's MVRV. We'll just, okay, that's fine. So going to the very right end here, we do see that average returns for wallets active in the past 30 days is sitting at about negative 0.7%, just a little below even. Meanwhile, long term, the returns of wallets active over the past 365 days are still up just modestly at plus 8.3%. Essentially, we're in neutral zone right now. If we went back to here, like anything under 10%, we saw a good moment to buy here and a few good moments to buy here at the end of February when things were really bottoming out. Ideally, we'd like to see this teal/cyan line getting down to negative 10% as well. What we don't want to see are both getting above 10%, which we can at least say neither of them are right now. So both of them are sitting here in the middle. And this kind of just means that we can go either way. And these news stories, especially as Trump makes announcements on the crypto reserve and capital gains tax for crypto later today, that's likely going to have a dramatic impact on prices, depending on just how positive of stories those two are. So keep in mind, whichever way we swing next, if we start to go above this plus 10% line on some positive news, that would mean that buying or holding from that point is a little more risky. If we suddenly see a dump and they both go below this line, that means you're at a much higher probability of buying at an ideal time compared to normal. So I wanted to point that out as well. We talked about funding rate. Whale transactions have declined a bit. They're kind of sitting, or at least the last full days, they were sitting in the middle here. But March 6th was quite down. I'm just doing a refresh to make sure that hasn't changed. It has not. So yeah, whales are kind of just chilling at the moment. Mean dollar invested age is worth discussing. We do see that there's been a bit of a climb in the average age of coins sitting in wallets. As long as this is rising, that means that the network is becoming a bit more stagnant and coins are essentially just frozen in those wallets without much movement. Ideally, for a bull market, we want to see this line beginning to move down as an indication that older coins are moving back into circulation, causing more network activity and pushing prices upward. So look for this mean dollar invested age line to have another dip in it at some point soon as a good justifier that we have resumed a bull market. That's, I know, what a lot of people are waiting for right now. Mentioned all these. Social dominance is way up for Bitcoin, at least as of yesterday. RSI, this actually is one I haven't looked at in a while. Let's take a look at the RSI for top caps. I know I have one for, here we go. This will take all of them together. A little too zoomed out there. Let's just go to the last month. So I'll draw a line right at 50. Anything below 50 means that we're in a better situation than usual. Anything above means we're in a slightly worse situation. And so I see two assets above. Cardano makes sense. It's been on a big run, and XRP, which has also been on a big run. Every other coin is actually below 50, indicating that the momentum is in a slightly bullish point at this time, and we could see a rise as a result. Toncoin especially, you know, Maksim's talked about this asset, is really struggled in 2025 after having a tremendous 2024. Not surprising at all there. So its RSI is the lowest on this list. And then we see a lot in the low to mid 40s here. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance Coin, Solana, Shiba Inu. These are all slightly below, so not a bad sign there either. Maksim, if you're still with us, how do you feel about the
Yes.
Toncoin situation after the big drop?
Nothing changed. I mean, it's already, again, not investment-wise, but it seems to be in the buy zone. After it break through 4, okay, below 4 is a good price. And now it's much below 4.
I haven't looked at Ton much myself yet, but yeah, it's at $3 at the moment.
It's good. No one is talking about. I guess if we take social dominance, it will be quite low.
Yeah, let's check out social dominance for Ton. Yeah, it's way down there. You can see social dominance here. I mean, all of the big talk was happening in early October, right before like crypto took off here a few days later. So everything started going like that.
Yeah, it was announced on Durov and probably came on the station token 2049. This was the last big announcement. So then it's just declining. Both, okay, price tried to break high one more time, but in terms of dominance, social dominance, just keeps going down or stabilized on a low level. So, and this is what you want to have: decline price and low social dominance means low attention of the crowd. Well,
yeah,
just keep in mind, not financial months, and can it take in a depressed level for you never know how long, but this is accumulation.
Yeah, Ton could be a sneaky pick at the moment. Obviously, Bitcoin has to find its own legs, and we need to see a bit of bullish momentum for the markets. But Ton's bleeding has gone on long enough where it's starting to justify that there can be some contrarian buys here as the market ignores it.
Yep.
By the way, Max, Balrash, do you see any questions for any asset or just the markets overall?
I think there was about Doge, right?
Ah, we got a Doge question, sure.
And not Department of Government Efficiency. the real Doge.
The actual coin Doge, yes. So let's take a look at Doge. I assume they're just asking for a general overview of the asset. So Doge has obviously been on a major decline. It topped out here in the first week of December, getting a little above 46 cents. And since that time, its price performance has been about negative 56%. So it's just been demolished, as a lot of meme coins have over the past 3 months. It's ironic because I think a lot of the crowd expected, you know, Trump as well as Elon Musk being, you know, next to him to create this huge new wave of meme coin dominance, and instead the opposite has happened, and a lot of traders have been humbled and moved back into Bitcoin and, you know, XRP, Cardano, whatever the latest top caps are, getting away from speculative assets a bit more. So from a transaction volume standpoint, it makes sense. It's just really dropped off a cliff. Active addresses, same thing. Circulation doesn't look quite as bad. In fact, we're getting the biggest circulation day we've seen in about a month today, for what it's worth. So that could be a sign of a potential mini turnaround. But this is the important one here. Average trading returns. So the 30-day MVRV sits at negative 9.1%. 8% for Doge. That's a good sign. The 365-day MVRV is sitting at about negative 27.5%. That's also a good sign. We talk about both of them going below right about this point. So the 30-day MVRV is just above that right now. If they both get below this, as we've seen a few times already in late February and early March, that's a good sign that we've really reached a bottom point for short and long-term holders. And we do see that price may not have rebounded from there yet, but it at least stopped the bleeding right when we saw both of these lines getting below this opportunity zone line. So that's a very good sign for Doge, in my opinion. Looking at a few other things, funding rate, which is very important for a speculative asset like Doge. It is seeing some shorting right now. I wouldn't call this an extreme level, but we've started really over the past month seeing consistent times where there's more short positions than long positions. We make sure that only Binance is showing to simplify it. Yeah, I mean, there's especially right here after this dump on March 3rd, lots of shorts opened up. They temporarily closed. We saw a little more longing, and now we're short again. So that's a good sign. As I mentioned earlier, if there are liquidations while an asset is being shorted, that can add rocket fuel to its price rebound and create some serious momentum. So I like the sign of that as well. Whales are fairly non-existent. They're pretty much the lowest they've been since October. And maybe we can break down really quick how the tiers look. So Dogecoin's current price is about 20 cents. We'll start looking at 100,000 or above as the key stakeholder tier. We'll actually do it by absolute. I'm just going to merge 100K and above. Go to the last year. That's not helpful because I think there's just constant new Doge being minted all the time. Maybe we can try it by percent of supply, see if that changes anything. A little bit. Okay. So the wallets holding 100,000 or more Doge currently sit at about 94.5%. I'll go all the way back to, we'll say, 2019. So let's see, get rid of that, add on price. We'll look specifically at price versus Bitcoin to see just how much these holders are making a difference in price. So Doge really took off here in April 2021 as the 100K plus wallets were redistributing. They then had this big surge again in accumulation when we dropped down. And then again, when prices spiked and retail got really interested, they began to take profit again and dump their coins to the retailers. Since that time, it's been just a steady decline. It's not quite staying flat like it did when Doge was really young in 2019 to 2021, but it does look like the 100K plus wallets are slightly fading. I don't love the look of this. I would like to see that they're at least staying kind of flat or having a mild accumulation like they did throughout 2024, really. But since November of 2024, they've dropped a little bit as retailers have tried to accumulate whenever prices go down. If we compare this to, let's say, the really small holders, anyone with one or less Dogecoin, we'll talk about just the micro.
More. One Dogecoin.
Okay, we'll go maybe all the way up to 100. How's that?
What is the price?
20 cents.
Yeah, 100.
So that's about $20 or less held in Doge. Yeah. So they've been rising pretty rapidly here. Make these candles so it's a little more easy to understand. Okay, so 0 to 100, they're holding the most that they have since the drop in 2022. That's not a great sign. It means that the retail traders are really confident and they're expecting some, familiar rally that they've seen, especially compared to 2021, October 2022, and November 2024. They're just hoping for another one of those. And so they're stacking Dogecoin, waiting for the next big pump so they can sell off. But the problem is the big key stakeholders, the whales, they're not the ones accumulating. It's all the small retailers that are just waiting for a couple huge whales to pump up the price for them, and odds say that's not really going to be happening anytime soon. So
if you include into this group, those holding 1,000 Doge.
Sure, let's add one more. Doesn't look quite as bad. A little more even when you're talking about the 100 to 1,000 tier, but they've still been going up pretty rapidly over the past 4 months.
Yeah. This is exactly the point. If you look into the chart, them increasing balances into falling prices, not a good sign. It was not a good sign in 22. The moment they stopped doing it, it became good.
Right.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And it was also not so, yeah, it was also the same in 24 when they didn't increase the prices. Yeah, Doge could pump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're rooting for this blue line to be going down.
Yes, exactly. So it was even slightly going down on the price go down. So at least they give up accumulation, and then it means the sentiment, underlying sentiment, is slightly or even more negative than slightly, more than slightly negative. So that's good. Now it's obviously still positive.
Yeah. Oh, this is fascinating. It's really illustrating, especially for a speculative asset like Dogecoin, just how much the markets move the opposite direction of what retail is expecting.
So sorry for a guy who asked on a YouTube channel, Vasil Stoyanov. Not that good news at the moment. It might change.
Yeah.
So just revisit this chart and see if they stop accumulating or ideally even start decreasing their balances. Very good.
Yeah.
Then for the moment, I've seen better setups.
The big test is if and when Bitcoin gets its next big rally, will the Dogecoin holders then use that momentum to start accumulating? That's when we really see a change. And the last thing I wanted to look at, Maksim, is just the top 10 trending coins. And we see Bitcoin far and away seeing the most discussion compared to normal. This isn't just by default, but Bitcoin is seeing more discussion than usual right now. So it's in the one spot. I think a lot of people are waiting for the strategic Bitcoin reserve announcement and capital gains.
Yeah.
It's going to be most relevant to Bitcoin, of course. Res at number 2, it's seeing a big price rise. So this is one of those coins you may want to be cautious of because it's almost certainly trending due to its price pump, which generally means that we are close to a top when it's in the top 3 on our trending token list.
So interesting that you see, wait a second, you see that connected words, it's a Cardano, Ripple, Red, I think it's an Oracle network which was trending recently. So I wonder how is it connected? Maybe Grok tries to connect it with this selected top 5 assets. Or
yeah, it does seem.
Is it for Red Oracle network coin? I don't know.
I don't know enough about Res. I've seen it popping up a little bit over the past week, but yeah, maybe we can do a little more research and we'll give you guys an update on why it's trending this much. But undoubtedly, it's largely due to the price pump, and that's usually a sign that we're at least about to see a temporary top. XRP also in the news. Related to the crypto reserve announcement, people are optimistic. XRP, for what it's worth, I mean, they are one of the biggest beneficiaries, at least according to the crowd's perspective, of Trump taking over and getting rid of Gary Gensler, who was very famously filing lawsuits against XRP over the last few years. So XRP is benefiting from a new regime here in the US. POR, I don't know anything about. This is the first time I've seen this ticker. Likely due to a price pump here. Not a huge price pump, but enough where it seems to be trending right now in relation to XRP and its potential impact on the market. I don't know if there's some adjacent correlation there. KuCoin shares is trending. I presume that there's some announcements and promotions going on via KuCoin. BLZ is up there, very likely due to a price pump here as well. Crypto.com token. I've seen Crypto.com getting a little bit of backlash. I saw a big post on Twitter and Reddit about them not being the most ethical. I don't have an opinion on it, but I know that the crowd has not liked some of the minting going on with their coins and diluting the value of each Crypto.com token as a result. Here's Red, as Maksim mentioned. So it's up there. S, I don't know anything about. Sonic Snipe Bot. Have you heard anything about this yourself?
Sonic, yes. This is the new chain from Andrei Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
I bought, I don't know, all projects on top of it. Seems to be one of them, which is now 20. But Sonic is quite trendy. Being mentioned in the channels I am also quite often.
And then last but not least, we have Digibyte, an OG token. I remember it from back in the 2017 bull run era. This is trending once again. So yeah, feel free to do more research on any of these tokens, guys, and let us know if anything is popping up to you. We're pretty much at that hour, so I think we can conclude now. Maksim, you stayed longer than you thought. We were happy to have you here throughout the rest of the call.
No worries. It's always a pleasure when I can. Thanks for running it.
Definitely, my friend. Well, on behalf of the Santiment team, guys, we're wishing you all a wonderful and happy weekend. We should see some announcements today from our U.S. president. So stay tuned for some news and potentially some volatility as a result of that. We'll keep you posted, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you to Maksim and Max for joining.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.